Good morning, everyone. It is my name is Dave King. I am the chair of the board of directors, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 75th Sascu Annual General Meeting. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you from the unceded territory of the Squamish First Nation. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land, which we all call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. This is a noteworthy AGM. It is the second time that we have conducted a meeting digitally using Zoom. It is our hope that this technology will encourage more people to join us than usual. And of course, it is a safe way to conduct ourselves when congregating during this pandemic. On a personal note, I would just add that I have just completed my 50th year in the financial services industry, and my wife and I will be celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary next week. Welcome to our membership and invited guests. I would like to acknowledge Angie Spencer, partners with BDO, and our president and CEO, Barry Delaney, as well as our current board members. First, I acknowledge Constance Liddell, board vice chair. She sits on the CEO and HR committee, as well as the governance and conduct review, where she's the chair, as well as the nominating committee. Dave Witt is the board secretary. He's the chair of our nominating committee. He sits on the CEO and HR committee, as well as credit and market risk. Barry Johnson, director, sits on audit and operational risk and credit and market risk. Darlene McBain, director, community relations and sponsorships, governance and conduct review and nominating committees. Frank Popine, director, audit and operational risk chair, governance and conduct review and nominating committees. Joan Ragsdale, director, community relations and sponsorships chair, audit and operational risk and governance and conduct review committees. John Schlosser, credit and market risk chair, community relations and sponsorships. And Kelly Bennett, director, audit and operational risk, community relations and sponsorships, credit and market risk. I would also like to recognize our newest elected official or member of the board in Dawn Dunlap. I would also like to recognize a few special guests who are attending today. Tracy Cleach from Concentra, Barb Himmler from Cumis, Deidre Kennedy from Cumis, Hong Lee from the BC Financial Institutions Association, Tony Leung from the BC Financial Institutes Association, Jason Atwell, PRA, our internal auditor, and Jeremy Pico, also from PRA. And last, Bill Corbett, CEO of Stabilization Central. I'd also like to recognize that we have a number of former board members in attendance, as well as a couple of the candidates who ran for our most recent election. Now, before we continue, I'd like to take a moment to hear how we are going to Zoom this meeting. And I'm going to introduce to you Julia Payne, our corporate secretary, to explain a few terms. Julia.
Hello. So for questions, they can be submitted through the Q&A feature on your screen anytime during the meeting. These questions, along with those submitted in advance, will be answered during the question period later in the meeting. If your question has already been asked in the Q&A feature, please upvote the question by giving it a thumbs up. We will provide answers to all questions on our website in the days following the AGM. If you would rather state your question, please select the raise hand feature on your screen. We will provide audio capability to those individuals during the question period. Once you have been called upon, unmute ask your question, and then please mute again. Voting will be done through a poll. The chair will read the motion, request a mover and seconder, and then call the question. The poll will then be launched and you will be provided approximately 45 seconds to select and submit your vote. If you do not wish to vote on the question, please select abstain to avoid delaying closing the poll. The chair will then announce the results and proceed to the next item of business. A reminder to our guests to please not vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Julia Payne is our registrar for today's meeting, and I will ask her now to share the number of members and guests attending to determine if a quorum has been satisfied. Julia?
Yes, so we have 81 present today and 63 are members, and so we have met our quorum.
Thank you, Julia. Calling the meeting to order. Given that we have sent out a notice of this meeting in compliance with our rules, including the consolidated financials, published the agenda and meeting details, and further have satisfied the quorum requirements, in accordance with our rules, I call this meeting to order. To satisfy the requirements for the recording secretary, I hereby appoint Julia Payne. The rules of order have been made available on your website in advance of this meeting, and we are on screen. I would like to highlight a few of the important ones. This meeting is open to members and invited guests only, and is closed to the media. No discussion of personal business from the floor. Robert Rules of Order will apply to all of our proceedings. The rules. At this point, we will have a motion, and that motion would read to accept the rules of order for the May 4th, 2021 Sascu Annual General Meeting, moved by Constance Liddell and seconded by Dave Witt. You will see the motion to approve is posted on your screen. Members, please vote now. That motion is carried. Thank you. The agenda was made available on the website in advance of the meeting and is now on the screen. I have a motion moved by John Slosser and seconded by Darlene McBain to accept the agenda as presented at the May 4th, 2021 Sascu Annual General Meeting. You will see the motion on the page in front of you. I would now ask that you vote. That motion is carried. Thank you. Approval of the minutes from our last annual general meeting. Our last meeting were made available on our website in advance of this meeting and are now on the screen. A motion was moved by Joan Ragsdale and seconded by Frank Copine to accept the agenda as presented at the May 4th, 2021 Sascu Annual General Meeting. You will see this motion now in front of you. Please vote. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Having reviewed the minutes of our last meeting, I can confirm that there's no business arising from the minutes. At this time, I will provide a director's report, and it's my pleasure to deliver that report on behalf of the full board. This past year, the board and management of Sascu, with some challenges one could never have conceived. On behalf of the board, we need to recognize the incredible dedication by both the management team and the entire staff for making it all work. Most importantly, we want to thank the members for their ongoing support and patience while Sascu dealt with the stages of this pandemic. We are anxious to see some return to normal, whatever that may look like. At this time, I would like to recognize Dawn Dunlap, our newest elected member of the Board of Directors. I would also like to recognize Mr. Barry Johnson, who has decided to let his term run out, is leaving the board. Barry has served in many committees during his 6 years on the board, and he served as the board chair for 3 years. Under his leadership, he was instrumental in introducing several important policies and made a significant contribution in the development of a new CEO compensation process. Thank you, Barry. Pictured on the screen is the award that we are presenting to Barry, and I hope that you can notice that he likes to golf. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate our President and CEO, Barry Delaney, on his successful election to the board of Central One Credit Union, representing the BC region. It is now my pleasure to introduce our President and CEO, Barry Delaney, so that he can deliver the President and CEO's report. Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, 2020 was certainly an extraordinary year, and for Sascu was no different. I just want to acknowledge the leadership team that helped us through the pandemic, and still today. We have Jennifer and Ken, Julie, Sherry, and Tom. They're part of the executive. Ken retired this year after 40 plus years of service to Sascu, and we look forward to our new executive joining the ranks later in May, which is going to be Doug Ebner. I wanted to share with you some financial results and non-financial results, and then talk a little bit about COVID. You can see that despite the challenges we had last year, we still attracted over 1,000 new members. We had weak loan growth of 7.8 million because of the general economic malaise that was right across Canada and North America. Conversely, we had very high deposit growth, 116.4 million. We've never seen deposit growth like that before. But of course, with the borders closed and with nothing to do, the deposits went higher and higher, and we fully expect that to be drawn down by the members and their families as 2021 unfolds. I wanted to just highlight the number of e-transfers we've done. We made e-transfers free March of 2018, and we were doing 8,000 per month back then. And today we're doing 19,500 a month, partly due to it being free, partly due to the pandemic, and partly due to that just being the natural way to do business. We had strong profitability last year of 6.1 million. Even though our margin was depressed because of low interest rates, we kept our costs tight, and as a result, we had strong profitability. And then our contact center, we were, before the pandemic, getting 3,000 calls per month. And when the pandemic hit, our volumes tripled. So a nod to COVID and the amazing work that all of our lines of business did under the leadership of Dan Morin, our Director of Credit, Jeff McCrimmon, overseeing leadership for insurance and for wealth management, and Mark Teo, our Director of Banking. We really pulled together and ran our business completely differently from what our members expected and from how we had planned 2020 to unfold. I mentioned the contact center. The big item that was noteworthy for us was rapidly offering 6 months of mortgage deferrals to families and businesses. It was amazing during that uncertainty in March, April, May, and June that so many people contacted us to defer their mortgage. And I'm proud of the fact that we allowed a mortgage to be deferred with just a telephone call or an email. There was no interview or qualification like our competitors did. It was apparent it was COVID related, and we offered that to the families that contacted us. And we had about 20 to 30% of our families asked to go on the mortgage deferral program. Here we are in 2021, and we're down to almost zero of those families are on the mortgage deferral program. We also rapidly deployed 50 of our staff to work from home out of our 150 staff. And that's truly amazing because prior to that, we had 0 staff working from home. And we didn't have the technology or the capabilities to ramp up. And due to the great technology team that we have, they found a way, they found new technology. And within 6 or 8 weeks, we had so many people working from home and staying safe. And then, of course, we resumed normal operating hours. We resumed in-branch service. And we wanted a big thank you to our board, who doubled the amount of donations to the food banks last year. We always do a Christmas donation, but they took that amount and did it again in the summer when the food banks were so busy. So I'd like to just comment on a couple of things that we did that members would see that you might notice that we're proud of. Last year, we rolled out something called single sign-on, and that's also stronger password protection. And this is the feature where you can go into your account and you can see multiple joint accounts that you're part of, all with one login. We're proud of that because that was a 2-year project led by Sherry Hamilton and Tom O'Connor and their project team. And it was something that our members have been asking for years. We serve a lot of small businesses, and we also rolled out new functionality for our small business clients where they can now have new features where they have delegate access and multiple signers. We also digitized more processes last year, including our residential retail mortgage renewal and our change of signers process. And that's when nonprofits want to change the signers on the soccer team every year, or the stratas want to change their signers. We've digitized that to make it much more friendly to the members. And then, of course, the contact center led by our team of great people there, Andrew and others. They continue to be open 8 to 8, Monday to Friday, and providing great service to the members. And with the digitization work, really helping the families in a convenient way. And just one that always warms my heart is 3 years ago, we partnered with Fix Auto, Cal Tire, and Braby, and we do the Christmas card giveaway to a deserving family. Braby Motors sources the used vehicle and makes sure it's mechanically sound. It goes over to Fix Auto where they make sure it's the body is nice and repaired and painted. And then Cal Tire sources new winter and summer tires, and Sascu provides the insurance. And this is where we're donating the check just before Christmas outside of our Sascu insurance location. I'd also like to turn a little bit to, our youth. I wanted to speak to youth. Last year, our annual report focused on youth. This is a picture of our youth council last year. To be on it, you have to be a staff member and under the age of 35. And we run business problems or business opportunities past the youth council to get their perspective. And it's great because they're always looking for convenience, flexibility, and choice. And all age groups are looking for convenience, flexibility, and choice. But it reminds us that are, like myself, over the age of 50, to think youth and to include them in the process. So what's next? What are we looking to for 2021? We're working on an online appointment booking system where our members who wish to see an advisor can go on our website and click and make an appointment either of an advisor of their choice or any advisor, and they talk about the business they wish to do, and we give them what they need to bring to the appointment and how long the appointment will be. They'll be very member friendly. We're also working on a new account lineup for checking accounts and savings accounts. We want to offer international money e-transfers. We want to work with our providers where you go online and when you want to do an e-transfer, you'll have on your menu underneath that internet, you want to do an international e-transfer, and then just click on that. We continue our community outreach, and we are rolling out a new banking phone app. We are working too on a new strategic plan. Our strategic plan work was paused when the pandemic arrived. Our 2 areas of strategic focus has served us very well for the last 4 years. We've been focused on member-centric opportunities and on continuous improvement. Now we want to focus our attention on member success opportunities, a stronger focus on digital, and building healthy communities. So more to come on that. The board is working now on that new strategic plan, and we hope for it to be ratified next month. So just a nod to some of the financials. Angie will speak more to this. I just wanted to highlight 2 graphs that you can find in our annual report. This is the earnings or the profitability that's contributed from our wealth business and our insurance business. You can see how it's grown significantly in 2020, and that green bar at the top of the blue represents the acquisition 2 years ago of Shuswap Insurance in Enderby. They continue to perform in a strong fashion and is an important part of the services that we offer our members and our families. Also, I want to highlight on the next graph our profitability or our income. We did receive a one-time payment from our governing body, Central One, of 1.5 million as we restructured our investments. So that green is showing that one-time payment. We won't get that again, but you can see the blue continues to grow. And that blue was grown primarily through expense reductions as we controlled expenses as we dealt with the pandemic. And that, Mr. Chair, is my report.
Thank you very much, Barry. That was an excellent presentation. I think we've got a lot to be proud of given all of the circumstances we went through in the past year. At this time, I would like to deliver the auditor's report. I'd like to introduce Angie Spencer. She is a partner with BDO, our external audit firm, and she was the lead partner in the audit. Angie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to all Sascu members, staff, executive leadership, and to the board. I'm happy to be here today and give you an overview of the results of our audit. As Mr. Chair has mentioned, I am Angie Spencer and I'm part of BDO. We are the independent auditors and have completed our audit of the 2020 financial statements of the credit union. The credit union reports under International Financial Reporting Standards. This is a requirement for all credit unions and other publicly accountable entities. We completed our audit on March 16th, 2021, and we issued an unqualified audit opinion. This means that it is a clean or unqualified audit opinion, and the financial statements are free from any material misstatements. In addition, we provide a management letter outlining our internal control deficiencies and are happy to report there were no significant control deficiencies as a result of that report. So I'll now go through these consolidated financial statements. Consolidated means that these figures include all aspects of Sascu, meaning the banking, the wealth, the insurance, and Shuswap Insurance results. So in front of you is the consolidated balance sheet. This is a summary of the assets, liabilities, and member equity as at December 31st. A full set of the financial statements has been, and with disclosures in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, is available on the Sascu website. So I'll go through some of the significant highlights and changes from prior year. As you can see, total assets of Sascu grew from 807.8 million in 2019 up to 919 million in 2020. This represents a 14% increase over prior year. And this growth is due to a few factors I will highlight. So as Barry had mentioned in his report, 2020, there was a significant increased demand in member deposits. So this includes cash deposits with the bank, TFSA, RSP investments. with members securing their cash and investments in 2020. This resulted in member deposits increasing 15% or 115 million over 2019. So this increase helped to create cash available to the credit union, and some of that was utilized by extending further loans to members. So loans distributed increased to 713 million over prior year, or a growth increase of 7.8 million. In addition, some excess cash was sitting in investments, and as you can see, investments grew from 65.7 million up to 155.1 million. So the increase in total assets less the liabilities of the credit union provided a favorable increase to the members' equity, which grew from 42.5 million to 48.7 million in 2020. So I'm going to move on now to the statement of comprehensive income. So this provides a summary of all of the revenues less expenditures of the credit union for 2020. So financial income remained flat over 2020. However, the credit union experienced an increase in financial margin. So this is interest income earned on loans less interest paid out, as interest rates sharply declined during 2020. Other income, which includes the income earned from insurance services, Sascu Wealth, increased over prior year and also included a one-time $1.5 million gain on the restructuring of the investment portfolio, resulting in some realized gains during the year. Expenditures remained flat over 2019, with a slight decrease in spending due to less travel, conferences, and overall reduction of costs in response to the pandemic. In addition, there were some staffing areas of positions that had not been filled in 2020, which created some cost savings and are not expected to be reoccurring next year. So overall, comprehensive income after income taxes for the year was 6.14 million, a very strong year for the credit union. So my following slide just provides an overall trend of growth for Sascu over a 3-year period. This illustrates a growth trend in financial margin increases, which is in the green, with a stable kind of flat increase of expenditures over the last 3 years. And lastly, I'd like to speak to capital adequacy and regulation of Sascu. So Sascu is regulated by the BC Financial Services Authority, which requires Sascu to demonstrate that they are within approved guidelines for having adequate capital available. The capital adequacy ratio guidance is based on a percentage of risk-weighted assets held in relation to debt and is meant to safeguard financial institutions against excessive leveraging. The regulatory requirement for this is 8% with a recommended 10% capital adequacy ratio. And Sascu's capital adequacy ratio for 2020 sits at 15.11%, well in excess of the required and recommended guidelines. So that's all I have for my audit report and overview of the financials. I'm happy to answer any questions now, or you can ask throughout or at the end of the presentation, and as Julia mentioned, we will be responding after the AGM.
Are there any questions from our attendees? Seeing no questions, thank you, Angie, for your very pointed explanation of our financial position. And I would like to at this point, advise every 5 years we conduct an extensive review process of our external audit requirements. Review was completed in 2019. The board agreed that BDO was the best firm to meet our needs. We therefore are recommending to our membership to appoint BDO as our auditors for 2021 and have the remuneration set by the board of directors. You will see on the screen a motion to move, which was moved by Kelly Bennett and seconded by John Slosser, to approve the auditor's report for December 31st, presented at our May 4th, 2021 Sascu annual general meeting, and that BDO Canada LLP be appointed auditors for Salmon Arm Savings and Credit Union and its subsidiaries for the 2021 year, and the board of directors to set the remuneration amount. You'll see that motion. I would ask that you please vote now. That motion is carried. Thank you. I would like to invite the chair of the Nominations Committee, Dave Witt, to deliver his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been my pleasure to chair our nominating committee this year, mandated to seek out qualified director candidates. Serving on this committee with me was Constance Liddell, Frank Popine, and Darlene McBain. We are very pleased to have 5 well-qualified individuals nominated and endorsed for the position of director. Alphabetically, the following persons made up our slate of candidates. Dr. Christopher Cottle is a dentist with a distinguished service in the Royal Canadian Navy and had significant experience as a board member in a variety of organizations. Don Dunlop is the executive director of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Shuswap-Revelstoke, with demonstrated experience in human resources, governance, leadership, financial literacy, and community development. Susie During is a realtor and property manager with experience as a financial analyst, municipal project management, and has served on the executive of the Real Estate Standards Board. Joan Ragsdale is the regional dean for Okanagan College, Shuswap-Revelstoke. In addition to serving on the Sascu board over the past 3 years, she has experience with the Salmon Arm Economic Development Society, Salmon Arm Chamber of Commerce, and the Shuswap Rotary Club. John Schlosser is the owner-operator of a Sycamoose Computer Service Company. In addition to serving on the Sascu board for 18 years over the past 2 decades, he has experience as a municipal councillor and as a director on several boards. Indeed, Sascu members had a remarkable slate to choose from. And at this time, I'm pleased to report that the successful candidates were Don Dunlop, Joan Ragsdale, and John Schlosser. Congratulations to Joan and John on your re-election, and congratulations to Don. The board looks forward to working with you. And by the way, your work begins now as Julia moves you from the member participation platform to our panel of board members so that our participating members can see your face. Also, a huge thank you to Chris Cottle and Susie During for your desire to serve the membership of Sascu and letting your name stand. We believe that interest in serving on our board is a positive reflection of a healthy credit union. This concludes the report of the nominating committee.
Thank you, Dave Witt. A job well done. I would like to invite the chair of the governance committee, Constance Liddell. I am terribly sorry for that. Constance Liddell to introduce her report. Constance, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. There were 2 resolutions presented to the membership during the election cycle this year, and those will be shown on the screen shortly as a refresher. These resolutions required 66% of the members voting affirmatively in order to pass. I'm pleased that they received 85% and 74% respectively. I want to give you a little bit of information about how these resolutions come to be presented to the membership. As part of the Governance Committee's annual tasks, it reviews the credit union's rules. This year, it was decided that the rules should undergo some revisions, in part to bring the rules into line with new technologies being available, and also to clarify the manner in which board members are elected. Together with senior management and legal counsel, the governance committee proposed a number of revisions to the rules and recommended that the board consider its proposal and vote on whether it should be presented to the membership. The board did consider the proposed revisions to the rules and voted affirmatively to present them to the membership. The next requirement that has to be met before they can go before you is review by our financial regulator. Financial regulator is looking at the proposed revisions to the rules as to whether they meet the regulatory requirements and align with the regulator's expectations, which they was achieved. They were then presented to the membership, who, as I stated at the outset, voted affirmatively and exceeded the requirements of votes needed to pass. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Constance. Again, well done. I would like a motion to approve the destruction of ballots after 30 days as related to our recent director elections and rule changes. The motion now appears on your screen, moved by Dave Witt and seconded by Constance Liddell, that the ballots, tallies, reports, and other material related to the election of directors be destroyed after 30 days. That motion is on the screen. I will ask you to vote now, please. That motion is carried. Thank you. To mark our 75th anniversary, I would like to introduce the chair of our Community Relations Committee, Joe, for an update on our very exciting legacy project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. I have the pleasure, as Dave has stated, of being part of a working group that is overseeing the 75th Legacy Project this year. What an exciting initiative this is going to be for all of us at Sascu. One of the long traditions at Sascu is supporting the communities we serve. We are constantly looking for opportunities that make a difference, that are real, profound, measurable, and visible. And this year is exciting in that Sascu is celebrating 75 years of serving our communities. Many of you know that Sascu started in 1946 with some humble beginnings. A small group of orchard farmers decided they wanted a financial institution that benefited the community and its members. This vision has guided Sascu over the last 75 years. And what started with a deposit, I think I have this right, I hope so, of $41.50 has now grown into a credit union with about 20,000 members and over 900 million in assets. A credit union with a reputation as one of the most forward-thinking and innovative credit unions in BC. Now, the apple structure you see on the slide in front of you and in the parking lot of downtown Salmon Arm Branch was commissioned for our 60th birthday. The 14 apples and the 14 families that founded us are represented in this art. And this project really celebrated Sascu's roots. The 75th Legacy Project is our opportunity to celebrate Sascu's contribution since its beginning, the last 75 years. When you think about all of the different community projects that have been supported over 75 years, you can start to really feel the authentic and real difference Sascu has made in the environmental and social fabric of our communities. When you think of the families and individuals where Sascu has been the trusted partner in the purchase of their homes, or the number of individuals whose professional careers have centered around Sascu, we start to get a sense of that personal impact Sascu has had over 75 years. And when one starts to think of all the businesses that have been supported, you start to really realize the role Sascu has played in developing a region known for its incredible entrepreneurial spirit and its creative class. We are thinking of all these things together when we're starting to think of our 75th Legacy Project. How we look at a project that reflects the living impact Sascu has had in our communities. One that is real, profound, and visible. Now, we don't know all the details of our 75th anniversary project yet, but we know one thing for certain, and that is going to involve our memberships during the selection of this project. So we have a great working group that is working behind the scenes right now to kind of finalize all the details behind this project. And we look forward to bringing those details to you, the members, shortly within the next few months. And we'll be looking for your input on this project as we move forward. And that is my report on the 75th Legacy Project.
Thank you very much, Joan. That gave us a lot of detail about what we're looking at. As we said, a very exciting legacy project is before us, and we want to make sure we do the right thing. We will now draw for the winners of 3 virtual door prizes, which will be randomly used the AGM registration list, and the winners will be, Julia Payne will be assisting me. The 3 draw winners at this point are number 1, Amy Hepler, number 2, Glenn Hill, number 3, Sandy Thon. We will be contacting you and making delivery of your virtual winner prize. So at this point, I would ask if there are any questions, because it's the new business time, and look forward to answering any questions that may be forthcoming.
So our first question was submitted in advance. And the question is, what are the biggest challenges facing Sascu this year? And then in the next few years, in what we hope is post-COVID era, what new developments or projects are the board and ELT most excited about?
I think this is a question that both the board and management can answer. From a board perspective, we're quite excited by the opportunity to get back and take a look at our strategic plan for the forthcoming future. I think if we put it aside for the last year, having really no conceived idea of what was going to take place. We're very, very pleased with the outcome, but at this time, it's time to get back to the table. And I will turn this over to Barry Delaney, our CEO.
That's a very thoughtful question. Thank you for that. I'd say right now the current challenge facing Sascu is the complexity of our business and the complexity of our environment. It's hard to know which way to turn given we are still recovering from the pandemic. All the credit unions in BC have an economic department in Vancouver with some economists. And they're telling us that post-COVID, we can look to a very strong economy and almost a boom in people wanting to get out and spend money. And so that's good, but it's also challenging because our staff are exhausted, frankly, from dealing with the pandemic and all the change and stress. And now we'll have a new kind of exhaustion as if that bears true. Being super busy to help with the growth that's in front of us. I would say that in terms of projects, one item that I'm quite excited about that's part of our new strategic plan is trying to provide value and access to 3 groups in our community that we currently don't provide services to now. One is new Canadians. We really don't know much about new Canadians or have relationships with immigration services or the faith-based community that does so much to help families relocate. Second is the underbanked. That would be people who don't qualify for an account with Sascu and are forced to deal with payday loan companies. Is there something there that we can do and offer an ethical product and still serve that group? And then third, I'm quite excited about is, again, a group we don't really do much business with or have much relationships, and that's the First Nations and Indigenous community, the 4 bands that surround us and are part of the history here. And we've already begun the process of reaching out.
Julia, would you have any other questions come forward?
Yes, so our next question is from Glenn Hill. Why did we not send out full financials prior to the AGM?
I'm going to let Barry handle that question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. When we sent out the AGM notice, the consolidated financials were included in that notice. And that's what Angie was speaking to today. And then the annual report with more detail is available. It's usually available a week prior to the AGM, and it was again this time, so it's in the branches, and I believe it's on our website as well.
Thank you, Barry. Julie, any questions?
The next question is from Glenn Hill as well. And he asks, why did we not send, based on the net return, are we considering patronage rebates, or what is the limit of retained earnings we require legally?
That was Dave giving me the nod. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, so our return is strong for 2020, but it doesn't really reflect our ongoing performance. We had that one-time gain of 1.5 million, so that inflated the margin or the revenue. And then we really tightened our belts on the expense side this year in terms of salaries, cutting travel, cutting consulting costs, cutting projects. So the profitability that we have is very strong, but those two things are not repeatable. And then in terms of capital, our capital is strong, but not strong enough from our regulator's point of view for us to consider introducing patronage again. The regulator continues to remind us that although we're meeting the standard for capital, we are low compared to other credit unions, and they want to see us get higher in our capital and retained earnings performance. And as you know, that takes years to build up.
Thank you, Barry. Julia?
Yes, our next question is from June Stewart, and she asks, what was the voter turnout like?
Well, Joan, I can partially answer that. We were a little disappointed that the numbers weren't as high as they have been in the past. And we kind of figure that has a lot to do with the pandemic and the number of people that are probably at this point of getting fatigued as far as appearing on screen and having to deal their business this way. But Barry, if you could handle the rest of that, please.
Yeah, so the last time we had an election was in 2017, and we had more than 1,000 members vote, which is very strong by any credit union in BC. In fact, on a percentage basis of our membership, it's one of the strongest turnouts. For this past election, it was quite low. It was about a third of that number. We certainly had enough members voting on the resolutions and the candidates to have a valid and good election, but we were disappointed that it was that low. And so we're going to be touching base with other credit unions to see if they experience the same turnout, low turnout, or is it just Sascu? I suspect it's pandemic related, but we don't know. And then we'll do a debrief to see what we can do for our next election in terms of stimulating membership votes.
Barry, and I think in addition to that, again, this is our second time we've had to conduct the meeting on a virtual basis. And perhaps if change in the future and we do have a face-to-face AGM, that may actually affect the numbers in some way. Julia, any other questions?
Yes, and I'll just jump ahead to June's question. I believe she's looking for specific numbers for the election turnout.
Barry, do you have the exact numbers?
I do. 331 votes were cast.
Thank you. Julia, any other questions?
Yes, we have a few more. The next one is from June, and she is asking, will the legacy project touch each Sascu community or just Salmon-Arm?
That is a very good question. At this point, we realize that $75,000 in any one type of legacy project would probably be not that significant. Again, the committee at this point is still evaluating the merits of each proposal. And as a credit union that is represented in not only just Salmon-Arm, we also have to take into consideration Sorrento branch, our Sycamoose branch, and our Enderby operations. So therefore, we are seriously looking at those issues, and a determination as to where our actual project will take place, that hasn't been determined at this point. Julia, please.
Our next question is from Amy Hepler, and she asks, I am a member of a recovery program, and we have been unable to set up an e-transfer capability to our account. This has made it difficult to keep our group and our organization financially solvent. Can you tell me if this may change?
Barry, I'll defer that question to you, please.
Yeah, hi, Amy. I don't know why that would not work for you. I think what we'll do is we have your email address, and we'll reach out after this meeting and try to understand the issue and help you out.
Thank you, Barry. Julia?
So our next question is from June Stewart, and she asks, how does Sascu Capital compare to the rest of the province? And I think she's looking for maybe some specific numbers.
I think Barry has kind of answered that question. I think we're still reaching out to the other credit unions to see what their positions are. We're not privileged at this point to see the financial statements from each organization, but I think now that Barry is sitting on Central One's board of directors, that information may be shared a little bit more liberally, and that'll get transmitted back to us. Go ahead, Barry.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, good question, June. We certainly know the numbers of the credit unions in our area. The regulator shares that. The minimum capital required by legislation is 8%. And we are, I think, Angie, in your report, we're in the 12 or 13% range.
You're
Oh,
15 this year.
Yeah, 15.11. So we're significantly more than the legislation, but compared to other credit unions in the province, we are on the low side. We're used to being top quartile in almost any financial metric you care to mention. However, when it comes to capital, we're low. And so every time, I mean, I have a call with the regulator monthly, and they're always asking, what are you doing to strengthen your capital? They don't give us a target to achieve, but they want us to get higher than what we are now.
Thank you, Barry. Julia, any further questions?
Yes, so our next question comes from a raised hand from Glenn Hill. So we'll just open up his line now.
Go ahead, Glenn. We're listening. Glenn, you'll need to unmute yourself, please. That doesn't seem to be working, so we may have to resort to just placing your question on our chat line, please. Julia, we'll move on. Are there any other questions?
So As of right now, that concludes our questions.
Again, if we do receive any questions after the AGM, we will try to address them personally. So you're certainly welcome to submit them to us. At this point, I will do a reminder to our board that we will be having a meeting directly after this AGM. And now that the agenda has been completed, our meeting today is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.